The desert was silent, but not empty. A dry wind moved across the broken land. Carrying the smell of dust and smoke, the sky was red with a fading sun, and long shadows stretched across the sand. A lonely traveler walked there, a man from another world. His boots left prints behind him, but soon the wind erased them. He had been moving for days without meeting a single soul. He thought this world was dead. He thought he was the only one walking here. But then, in the distance, he heard something. A sound too small, too soft to belong to the desert. It was a cry, a thin, frightened voice carried by the wind. The man stopped. He turned his head and listened. The sound came again. It was the sound of a child, weak and lost, without waiting. He followed it, his steps quickened, his heart heavy with both fear and hope. Behind a fallen stone wall, he saw her, a little figure. Small as a shadow, her skin was pale with a silver glow, her hair long and tangled. Shining faintly under the dying sun, her ears were pointed, her eyes wide like glass. She was not human. She was alien. The girl trembled when she saw him. Her clothes were torn, her bare feet cut by stones. Dust and scratches covered her skin. She looked hungry, tired, and afraid. For a moment, the man and the child only stared at each other. "Are you alone?" he asked softly. His voice broke the silence. The girl did not answer, but her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. She looked behind her, as if she feared something was still chasing her. The man stepped closer. Carefully, slowly, he lowered his hands to show he carried no harm. "I will not hurt you," he whispered. The girl blinked. A small sob escaped her. She nodded, though her body still shook. Then came another sound. Low, deep, and heavy. From the far side of the ruins, shadows moved. The man saw them, dark shapes. Creeping closer, they were not men. They were not animals. They were something else. The girl gasped and hid behind him, her small hands clutching his coat, her body shaking with terror. The traveler felt a chill run through him. He had never seen creatures like these. Their bodies were twisted, crawling on four legs, but moving too fast. Their eyes glowed red, their teeth sharp. And their voices were a growl of hunger. The man had no choice. He pulled the weapon from his side, a simple steel blade, worn but strong. The creatures hissed when they saw it. Their bodies lowered, preparing to attack. "Stay behind me," he told the girl. The first creature leaped. He swung his blade. The steel cut through the air. Striking the beast across its chest, it fell back with a scream. The others circled, their red eyes burned in the dim light. The man fought, his movements sharp, his breath hard. Every strike was to protect the small figure hiding behind him. The creatures lunged one after another, but he did not give way. His blade shone as he cut through the shadows. When the last one fell, silence returned. The desert was quiet again. The man stood, breathing heavily, his clothes torn, his blade stained. But he was still alive. Behind him, the little girl slowly looked up, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. She whispered something, a word he did not understand. Her voice was soft, trembling. And filled with gratitude, he bent down to her level. His face calm, though his heart still raced. "It is safe now," he said. "They are gone." The girl stared at him as if she could not believe it. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around him. Her small body clung to him with all its strength. She was crying, her tears wet against his chest. The man froze for a moment. He had not felt a touch like this in many years. Slowly, carefully, he placed his hand on her back. He did not know who she was or why she was here, but he knew one thing. She was alone. She was in danger. And now? She was his responsibility. He lifted her gently into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her head rested against his shoulder, her eyes already closing from exhaustion. As the sun fell behind the mountains, the man began to walk again, carrying the alien child through the endless desert, far away, unseen by them both. Other red eyes watched from the darkness. The shadows had not all been destroyed. Some still lived, some still followed. The man did not know it yet, but saving this little girl would change his life forever. The night was cold. The desert wind howled like a wounded animal. The man kept walking, the little alien girl asleep in his arms. Her breath was shallow, her small body trembling from both fear and exhaustion. He held her close, protecting her. From the chill hours passed, at last. He found a ruined shelter made of broken stone and dry wood. He carried her inside, laid her down gently, and lit a small fire with his flint. The flames rose, bringing warmth and light for the first time. That day, the child's face softened. Her silver skin reflected the firelight like moonlight. The man watched her. He did not know her name. He did not know her people, but something inside told him that fate had tied them together. He could have walked away, but he had not. And now? He wondered why morning came. The girl woke with wide eyes. She sat up and looked at him with fear at first, but then, slowly, she smiled. It was a small smile, fragile, but it carried life. "Are you hungry?" the man asked. She nodded. He gave her dry bread from his pack. She ate it quickly, as if she had not eaten in days. He noticed her necklace, a small stone glowing faint blue. Perhaps it was precious. Perhaps it was just a child's trinket. Before he could ask, she suddenly looked toward the horizon. Her eyes lit up. She stood and pointed, whispering words he did not understand. The man turned. In the distance, he saw figures approaching. At first, he thought it was danger. His hand went to his blade. But then, he saw the shapes clearly. They were not beasts. They were people like the girl. Tall, slender, skin glowing. Faintly, ears sharp, they walked with grace, carrying staffs and wearing robes of woven fiber. At their center was a woman. She was taller than the rest. Her long golden hair shone like fire in the morning light. Her eyes carried both sorrow and strength. Her beauty was beyond human measure. Every step she took seemed deliberate, proud. Noble, the girl ran to her, crying out. The woman fell to her knees and embraced the child tightly. Her face broke into tears. She whispered in a trembling voice, her arms not letting go. It was her mother. The man watched silently. He felt relief, but also a strange emptiness. The child no longer clung to him. She was back where she belonged. Still, her eyes turned to him, filled with gratitude. She pointed to him, speaking quickly to her mother in their strange tongue. The golden-haired woman stood. She walked toward him, her eyes locked on his. She stopped only a step away. Her voice was soft, yet powerful. Though he could not understand her words, he felt their meaning. She was thanking him. Then, in broken human language, she whispered, "You saved my child." The man nodded. She was lost. He said simply, she needed help. The woman studied him. Her eyes searched deep into his soul. There was something more than gratitude in her gaze, something he could not name. Her hand touched her daughter's head gently, then pointed to him again. She spoke to her people, and they bowed their heads slightly. The man frowned. "I am no hero," he muttered. But they seemed to see him as one. The woman gestured for him to follow. He hesitated, but the girl ran back to him and took his hand, pulling him toward her mother. He could not refuse. They walked together through the desert until they reached a hidden path. Beyond it lay a valley, untouched by ruin. Green plants grew. Water flowed in streams. Simple huts, made of wood and stone, stood in circles. It was a secret village, protected from the outside world. The people watched as he entered. They whispered among themselves, some curious, some wary. Their glowing eyes followed him. Some children ran behind trees, peeking at the stranger. The little girl laughed for the first time since he had met her, pulling him forward proudly. The woman led him to her home. It was larger than the others, made from carved wood, decorated with strange symbols. Inside, it smelled of herbs and flowers. She offered him water in a carved bowl. He drank, his thirst fading. At last, she spoke again in broken words. You saved her. You are welcome here. The man bowed his head. My name is Daniel, he said. Who are you? The woman paused, then placed a hand over her chest. Elara, she answered. This. My daughter Lyra. Daniel looked at the child, who smiled brightly. Lyra. He repeated. She giggled at the way he said it. Lyra's eyes softened, but then her expression grew serious. She leaned closer, her voice low. Danger. Still here. Shadows come again. Daniel felt the weight of her words. He remembered the red eyes in the dark, the beasts he had fought. He knew she was right. The danger was not gone. It was only waiting. Elara's eyes fixed on him. Her gaze was deep, searching. You? Stay. She asked slowly. Her words were heavy with meaning. It was not just an invitation, it was a plea. Daniel felt a strange pull inside. He had wandered so long, always moving, always alone. Now here was a child who looked at him with trust, and a mother who looked at him with something deeper. Something he could not yet understand. The fire outside burned low as the day passed. The village prepared food, people sang softly, and in the center of it all, the stranger sat with the alien. Child and her mother, far beyond the valley, in the shadows of the mountains, red eyes opened once more, watching, waiting. The valley seemed like another world. Daniel had walked through deserts of ash and ruins of stone. He had seen only death and silence. But here, life still breathed. Green leaves shone in the sun. Streams of clear water moved like silver veins. Through the land, children laughed, animals grazed, and fires burned with warmth instead of fear. Lyra ran ahead, her small feet dancing on the grass. She looked back often, smiling at Daniel, as if proud to show him her home. Elara walked beside him, her golden hair glowing in the light. The people of the village stopped to watch. Their glowing eyes studied the stranger, some faces curious, some cautious, some filled with quiet suspicion. Daniel felt the weight of every stare. He was an outsider. He did not belong here. Yet he had saved one of their own, and for that, they tolerated his presence. Still, the whispers followed him as he walked. At the center of the village stood a circle of stone pillars, covered in strange carvings, symbols of stars, moons, and creatures he had never seen before. Elara stopped there. She touched one of the stones, her fingers moving across the lines, her voice low. She spoke words in her own tongue. Daniel watched, not understanding, but feeling the weight of her ritual. Lyra stood close to him, clutching his arm like a friend who would not let go. Safe, she whispered in broken human words. Safe here. He nodded, though he was not sure. Inside the village, Daniel began to notice things. The huts were simple, but decorated with care. Each door had marks carved into it, protection symbols perhaps. The people worked with quiet harmony, weaving cloth, preparing food, sharpening spears. They were not warriors by choice, but survivors. When Elara finally led him to her home again, she offered him a seat. Villagers gathered outside, whispering. Peeking through the wooden frames, Daniel could feel the tension. He was not just a guest, he was being measured. Judge Elara's voice broke the silence. Long time. No stranger here, she said slowly. Her words were careful, but each carried weight. You. Different, Daniel frowned. Different. She nodded. You fight shadows. Not afraid. Daniel thought of the beasts he had faced. I was afraid, he admitted, but the girl needed me. I could not leave her. Elira's eyes softened, Her hand touched Lyra's hair gently. For that. We thank you. That evening, a feast was prepared. Daniel sat with them by the great fire in the village center. The food was strange, but good. Roasted roots and herbs, meat from animals he had never seen before. The people sang in a low rhythm. A haunting melody that seemed older than the valley itself. But even as they sang, Daniel felt unease. The sky above the valley was darkening. Clouds gathered. And the wind carried a faint cry from the mountains. It sounded too much like the voices of the shadows. One of the villagers, an elder with a beard like white flame, stood and addressed the people. His voice deep, commanding. Daniel could not understand his words, but he saw the reaction fear. Whispers and eyes turning toward him, Ilara translated softly. Elder says, "Shadows grow strong again. They will come. Soon." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then you must prepare." Ilara's eyes locked on his. "We prepare, yes, but we need more. We need." You. Daniel was silent. He was just one man, a wanderer, not a savior. Yet he saw the hope in Lyra's eyes, the strength in Ilara's, and the fear in the faces of the villagers. Later, when the fire burned low, Daniel walked near the edge of the valley. Lyra followed him quietly. She tugged at his hand. "Father," she whispered. His heart tightened. He had no child of his own. He had never been called that word. He looked down at her small, glowing face. And he could not answer. Behind them, Ilara approached. Her steps were soft, but her presence was strong. She stood beside him, staring at the mountains, the shadows. "They come for us," she said. "But not only us, they come for you too." Daniel turned sharply. "For me? Why?" Her golden eyes did not blink. "Because you are not here by chance. You were led." His breath caught. He wanted to deny it. But deep inside, he remembered how he had found Lyra, how the cries had reached him across the desert like a call meant only for him. Ilara's hand brushed his arm lightly. "Stay," she said again. "Protect my daughter. Protect us." Her voice was not only a request, it was a plea from a mother, a leader, a woman who had carried burdens too long. Daniel looked at her, at the child, at the village hidden in the valley. He had been alone for years, wandering without purpose. But now, here, maybe he had found something worth fighting for, far above in the darkness of the cliffs. Red eyes opened again. They watched the valley with hunger, waiting for night to fall, and Daniel felt the storm of fate closing in. The night came heavy and silent. The valley that once felt safe now seemed too quiet. The firelight flickered against the wooden walls. Shadows danced across the stone pillars. The villagers stayed close together, whispering in low voices. Fear was on every face. Daniel sat near the edge of the fire circle, sharpening his blade, his mind restless. He had seen war before. He had fought beasts before. But this was different. These people were not soldiers. They were families, mothers, fathers, children. If the shadows came, most of them would not survive. Lyra sat beside him, watching the sparks fly from his blade, her small eyes wide with trust. "Safe?" she asked, her voice soft. Daniel forced a smile. "I'll keep you safe," he said, but in his heart, he was not sure. Ilara approached, her golden hair glowing in the firelight. She carried a staff carved with strange runes. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed her worry. She sat across from him, her gaze steady. "They come tonight," she said. Daniel stopped sharpening his blade. "How do you know?" Ilara lifted her eyes to the dark mountains. "I feel it," she whispered. "The shadows move when the moon hides. Tonight, the moon is gone," as if her words had summoned them. A low growl echoed across the valley. The villagers froze. Children clutched their parents, warriors grabbed their spears. The fire crackled, but no one moved. Then came the eyes, red, glowing, dozens of them appearing on the cliffs above. The shadows had returned more than before, crawling like a flood of darkness down the rocks. Daniel rose to his feet, blade in hand, his heart pounded. He had fought a few of them before, but this was an army. The villagers looked to Alara, and Alara looked to him. "Stand ready." Daniel shouted, his voice carried through the valley. The people tightened their circle, spears raised, shields lifted, but their hands shook. The first shadow beast leaped into the firelight. Its body twisted, black as ash, with long claws and teeth like blades. It roared, shaking the ground. Then it charged. Daniel met it head-on. His blade cut across its chest, sparks flying from its burning skin. The beast fell, but more came, climbing over the walls of the valley. Their screams filled the night. The villagers fought, spears struck, arrows flew, but the shadows were fast. Too fast, they leaped over defenses, tearing into huts, breaking the circle apart. Children screamed, fires spread. Chaos filled the air. Daniel fought with fury. His blade flashed again and again, cutting through the dark. His body moved with instinct, every strike protecting those behind him. But for every beast he killed, two more took its place. "Alara," he shouted, "we can't hold them." Alara stood tall, her staff glowing with strange light. She slammed it into the ground. A wave of energy pulsed outward, throwing several beasts back. The villagers gasped. Some fell to their knees, crying out her name like a prayer. But the shadows did not stop. They climbed higher, their red eyes burning with endless hunger. Daniel's arms ached, his breath heavy. His blade was slick with black blood. He looked around and saw Lyra clinging to the side of a hut, crying. A beast leaped toward her, its claws raised, nitrogen monoxide. Daniel roared. He sprinted, his body faster than his thoughts. He threw himself between the beast and the child. His blade struck true, splitting the monster in half. The black blood sprayed, burning the ground. Lyra fell into his arms, crying. Daniel held her close, but before he could breathe, more beasts surrounded him. They circled, growling, their teeth gleaming. Suddenly Ilara's voice cut through the air. "Together," she shouted. The villagers rallied. They formed a tighter circle, pushing forward with spears. Daniel stood in the center, Lyra behind him, Alara at his side. Her staff glowed brighter and brighter. The ground shook. A storm of energy burst from her staff, blinding light flooding the valley. The shadows screamed, their bodies burning. Some fell. Others fled back into the mountains. The air smelled of smoke and ash. When the light faded, silence returned. The ground was littered with black corpses. The fires burned low. The people stood, shaking, alive but broken. Daniel dropped to one knee, his blade still in hand, his body trembling. He had never felt so close to death. Yet he was still standing. Lyra crawled to him, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "Father," she whispered again, her tears wet against his skin. He closed his eyes, holding her tightly. Ilara came to him. She placed her hand on his shoulder, her eyes soft but heavy with meaning. "Without you, we die," she said. Her voice was both strong and broken. Daniel looked at her. He wanted to speak, to deny her words, but he could not. He had saved them, yes. But he also knew this was not the end. The shadows would return, stronger, fiercer. And next time, even Alara's magic might not be enough. The villagers gathered, some bowed to Daniel. Tees whispered prayers. He could see it in their faces. They no longer saw him as an outsider. They saw him as something else, a protector. But Daniel knew the truth. He was just one man, one blade, and the storm was far from over. Above them, in the cliffs, a single shadow watched, larger than the rest. Its eyes burned brighter, its growl deeper. It turned and vanished into the night. The real battle had not yet begun. The valley was quiet again. The bodies of the shadow beasts lay scattered like black stone across the ground. The smell of ash and burned flesh clung to the air. The fires were dying, smoke rising into the night sky. The villagers moved slowly, carrying the wounded, comforting the children. Trying to believe they were still safe, Daniel sat near the fire, his blade resting across his knees. His arms ached, his body bruised. Every breath felt heavy. He had fought with all his strength. But he knew the truth: the shadows would return. Stronger than before, Lyra sat beside him, curled against his side. Her small hand gripped his sleeve tightly, as if afraid he would vanish if she let go. Her eyes were red from crying, but her face was calm now. "Oh," she whispered. One word again and again. "Father, Father." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to correct her, to remind her he was no father. But the word filled him with something he had not felt in years belonging. Ilara stood a short distance away. Speaking with the elders, her staff glowed faintly. Her voice strong even though her body trembled. She gave orders, she comforted her people, but every few moments. Her golden eyes flickered toward Daniel later that night. When the fires had gone low and the villagers began to rest, Ilara came to him. Her steps were slow, careful. Her long hair shimmered in the moonlight. She stopped in front of him, silent. For a moment, her gaze shifted to her daughter, asleep in his arms. Then back to him. "Walk with me," she said softly. Daniel rose, careful not to wake Lyra. He laid her gently on a blanket near the fire, then followed Ilara through the village. They walked past huts, past the stone pillars, to the edge of the valley where the water flowed. The moonlight shone on the surface. Silver and still, Ilara stood there, her back straight, her hands gripping the staff. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "You saved her." Twice now, Daniel shook his head. "I did what anyone would do." "No." Ilara turned, her golden eyes piercing his. "Not anyone. Many would walk away. Many would leave a lost child to die. But you. You carried her. You fought for her. You stood for us when you could have left." Daniel looked away. The memories of his past weighed on him. He had walked away before, from battles, from people, from promises. That was why he wandered now, alone, but here. Here he had not walked away. Ilara stepped closer. Her voice trembled, though her face remained calm. "I am leader of my people. I am mother to Lyra. But I cannot protect them alone. The shadows grow stronger. My magic is not enough. My people fear. My daughter fears." She paused, her breath catching. Then her words came heavy. "Ra, I need you. Daniel, I beg you. Stay, stay, and protect us. Stay and protect her. Stay and be my husband." Daniel froze. Her words struck him harder than any blade. He stared at her, searching for some hint of jest, but there was none. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Her hands trembling slightly on the staff. "Ilara," he whispered. His voice caught. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done. What I've lost." Her hand lifted, touching his arm, warm and steady. "I know enough. I see it in your eyes. You carry pain, yes, but you also carry strength. You carry the heart of a protector. My daughter sees it, my people see it, and I feel it." Daniel's chest burned with conflict. He was just a wanderer, a soldier without a cause. He had no family, no home. He had chosen to live without ties, because ties meant loss. Yet here, in this valley, a child clung to him like he was her father. And a mother looked at him as if he was the answer to her prayers. He turned away, his fists tightening. "If I stay, I will bring danger. The shadows will not stop. They will come again. They will come for me. You said it yourself, Phi was led. Here, they want me." Ilara's voice grew stronger, sharper. "Then, let them come. If you are the key, then we need you more. Daniel, if you leave, we die. If you stay, maybe we live." The silence stretched. The sound of water echoed in the night. Daniel felt the weight of her words press into his heart. He thought of Lyra's small voice calling him father. He thought of the villagers bowing their heads in thanks. He thought of Alara's eyes, pleading yet strong. Finally, he whispered, "I am not sure I can be what you ask." Alara stepped closer. Her hand touched his face gently. "You already are," she said. Daniel closed his eyes. The touch burned through him, stirring something he thought long dead, a spark of belonging, of family, of love. But before he could answer, a sound rose from the mountains, a distant roar. Louder than before, the water rippled, the earth trembled. Daniel's eyes snapped open. Ilara's hand fell from his cheek. Both turned toward the darkness. The shadows had not retreated. They had only gathered, and now they were coming again. The roar faded into the night. The valley was still. But Daniel felt the weight of it in his bones. The shadows had not been destroyed. They were waiting. Growing, preparing. He stood at the water's edge, Ilara's plea still burning in his ears, her golden eyes still haunting his thoughts. He returned to the fire where Lyra slept. Her small body curled under a woven blanket. Her hand clutched the glowing stone necklace she wore. Her lips moved as she dreamed. And Daniel thought he heard her whisper his name. He sat beside her, staring into the dying flames. His blade rested across his lap, but his heart felt heavier than steel, for the first time in years. He had something to lose. The villagers moved quietly through the night, repairing broken huts, gathering the dead, sharpening weapons. They looked at him as they passed. Some nodded with respect, some with silent hope. He could feel that he had become more than an outsider. He had become a symbol, but symbols carried weight, and weight could crush a man. Alara approached once more, her steps soft, her staff no longer glowing. She sat across from him, her face pale with exhaustion. Yet her eyes never wavered. "You heard it," she whispered. "They will come again, stronger, soon." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know." She leaned closer, her voice low, almost breaking. "That is why I beg you, Daniel, choose to stay. Choose to be ours, my people. My daughter. Me, we cannot face what comes without you." Daniel's hand tightened on his blade. His voice was rough. "Ilara, if I stay, I bring death to you. The shadows want me, not just your people. You said it yourself, Phi was led here. This is no accident. If I stay, they will never stop hunting this valley." Ilara's hand trembled. She reached across the fire and touched his wrist. "If you leave, they will hunt us anyway. They already know us. They already want our blood. But with you, we have hope. Without you, we have nothing." Daniel's chest burned with conflict. He thought of his past, of battles lost, of comrades buried, of promises broken. He had sworn never to tie himself to others again, because every tie ended in pain. Every bond ended in loss. But then he looked at Lyra, sleeping peacefully, her small hand gripping that glowing stone. And he remembered how she had clung to him, how she had whispered "Father" in the middle of battle. That one word had cut through all the walls he had built around himself. He whispered to Alara, "If I stay, I become part of this. I become part of her life, part of yours. Are you certain this is what you want?" Her eyes softened, shimmering in the firelight. "I have never been more certain. I do not ask because of duty. I ask because of what I feel. My daughter already loves you. My people already trust you. And my heart," she stopped, her breath shaking, but her gaze steady. "My heart has chosen you." Daniel's breath caught. For a moment, the fire seemed to fade. The valley seemed to disappear. and only her voice filled the night. But the roar in the mountains returned, louder this time. The ground shook beneath them. The villagers cried out in fear. Daniel rose to his feet, blade in hand, his choice still unspoken, but his body already moving as if the decision had been made. He stood between the villagers and the dark horizon, his voice hard, strong. Prepare your defenses. They come again. The villagers obeyed, grabbing spears and shields. Children were carried to the back of the valley. Elders raised their staffs. Elara stood beside Daniel, her staff glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Daniel glanced at her, then at Lyra, who had woken and now clung to his leg, her small eyes wide with fear. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Don't go." Daniel knelt, placing his hand on her cheek, his voice low but steady. "I will never leave you." He rose again, standing tall for the first time in years. His heart felt whole. His choice was made. Not in words, but in action. He would not walk away, not this time. Lyra's voice rose behind him, echoing across the valley, rallying her. "People, we stand. We fight together." And Daniel's voice joined hers, stronger than he had ever known it. "We fight, and we do not break." The villagers roared, their fear turning into fire. Spears slammed against shields. Voices carried into the night. The red eyes appeared once more on the cliffs, dozens, hundreds, glowing like fire in the dark. The shadows screamed, their bodies pouring down like a river of black. The earth trembled as they came. Daniel lifted his blade, the firelight flashing across its edge, his heart steady now, his path clear. He had made his choice. He would fight. He would protect. He would belong beside him. Elara raised her glowing staff, her golden hair whipping in the wind. Behind them, Lyra's small voice cried out with courage. "Fight, fight." And as the shadows poured into the valley, Daniel felt no fear, only purpose, only strength, only the weight of a choice finally made. The choice to stay, the choice to fight, the choice to be theirs. The night burned with fire and screams. The shadows came like a storm, pouring down from the cliffs in endless waves. Their red eyes glowed, their claws scraped the stone, their cries shook the air. The villagers stood shoulder to shoulder, spears and shields raised. Behind them, the children and elders huddled. Praying, Daniel stood in front, his blade ready. The firelight danced across the steel. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. This time, he was not fighting for survival. This time, he was fighting for them, for Elara, for Lyra. For a village that had taken him in, the first beast leaped from the dark. Daniel met it with steel. His blade cut clean. The monster fell. Another came, and another. Daniel fought without rest, his movements sharp and strong. The villagers behind him struck with spears, pushed with shields, shouting as they fought. Elara stood at his side, her staff blazing with white fire. Each strike of her staff sent waves of light through the battlefield, burning shadows into ash. Her voice cried spells in her ancient tongue, her golden hair wild in the wind. Still, the shadows kept coming. The ground shook under their numbers. Daniel's arms ached. His body bled, but he did not stop. He could not stop. Lyra cried out from behind, "Father." Her small voice reached him even through the chaos. He looked back once, just long enough to see her glowing eyes filled with both fear and trust. That single glance gave him strength. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The fire spread. The night filled with smoke. Villagers fell. Shadows burned. Blood covered the earth. But at last, silence. The remaining shadows pulled back, their bodies retreating into the dark cliffs. Their screams faded into the night. The villagers stood shaking, wounded but alive. Daniel dropped to one knee, his chest heaving, his blade heavy in his hand. The ground was littered with black corpses. the air thick with ash. Ilara stood beside him. Her staff dim now, her body trembling, but her eyes still burned with fire. Lyra ran forward and threw her arms around Daniel, her small voice trembling. You stayed, you stayed. Daniel held her close, his heart heavy but proud. I told you, I will never leave you. The villagers began to cheer, weak at first, then stronger. They raised their voices to the night, shouting his name, Daniel the Protector, Daniel the Blade. For the first time, he felt their beliefs sink into his bones. But even in that moment of victory, Daniel knew the truth. This was not the end. The shadows had not been defeated. They had only withdrawn. And then the revelation came. The elder of the village stepped forward, his white beard stained with ash, his eyes grave as he looked at Daniel. His voice was low, shaking with fear but filled with certainty. The shadows do not hunt us, he said. They hunt you. The cheers died instantly. The villagers turned to look at Daniel, confusion and fear spreading through their faces. Daniel froze. Me? The elder nodded slowly. They have waited for you. They have always waited. You are not here by chance. You were called, led, brought to this place by forces older than you can know. Lara's face went pale. Her hand trembled on her staff. Her golden eyes fixed on Daniel, searching, afraid. Is it true? She whispered. Daniel shook his head. I don't know. I don't understand, but deep inside, he remembered the cry that had led him across the desert, the voice that had pulled him toward Lyra, the way the beasts had followed him since the moment he arrived. The elder's voice grew louder. You are the key, Daniel. The shadows rise because of you. They fear you, or they need you, one or the other. But you are at the center, not us. The villagers began to murmur. Some stepped back from him, fear in their eyes. Others looked torn between trust and terror. Lyra clung to him tighter, her small voice fierce. No, he is good. He saved me. Ilara's face was filled with conflict, her heart pulling one way, her duty pulling another. She took a step toward Daniel, then stopped, her lips trembling. If this is true, then you bring danger to us. Daniel's chest burned, his heart twisted. He looked around at their faces, people who had cheered him moments ago, people who had begged him to stay. Now their eyes wavered with doubt, with fear. For the first time, he felt the weight of a new question pressing down on him, heavier than any blade. Was he their savior or their doom? The mountains rumbled again, louder than before. A massive roar shook the earth, far deeper than the voices of the beasts they had faced. The villagers screamed, running for cover. On the cliffs above, two enormous eyes opened, larger than houses. Glowing like suns of blood, the shadows had a master, and it had awakened. Daniel gripped his blade, his breath heavy. His choice to stay had brought him here. His fight had only just begun, and now the truth hung in the air like fire. He was not only part of their story, he was the story.